How blessed are we? We have wisdom from the corporate headquarters. Next, we have someone 29 years in the business, our most recent $1 million earner. We have a power couple. I'm so excited to announce the next person. We have Sarah Francis.
Well, hello everyone. Thank you so much for inviting Dean and I to come be part of your school this weekend. We are so excited to be here. A few years ago we had Ian, and Ian came to us, and I think that's how we got to $1 million, because he inspired us so much. And so we're very thankful for the Pruckner team. I have my notes on my phone. Hopefully I stick with them. Usually I forget about them as I get going. But the reason I'm here first, I'm going to share our story, just let you guys get to know who we are. And if you haven't ever heard of us before, you're brand new or whatever, then you'll be hopefully hopeful that you have a chance to be a $1 million earner as well. Because I told Ian back there, I said, how old are you? And he's like, 35. And I said, oh, I think when we started, I was babysitting kids that were 6 years old. But we've been doing this for 29 years, and so Ian got to $1 million before we did. But it really doesn't matter, because as long as you keep going and you get there, some do it fast and some take a long time, but when you get there, it's worth it, and it doesn't really matter how long it takes you. So I'm here to give you hope when I tell you our story. And so just to introduce us, we've been married for almost 29 years, not quite. We've been in the business a little longer. And we have 5 kids, and they're aged 25, 23, 20, 18, and 15. And we just are so proud of them. We live in Richmond, Virginia, but we both grew up in Michigan. I grew up in Flushing, up north a little bit, and he's from Troy. And we met at college in Virginia. And when we were in Virginia for a few years, we decided we liked the weather there better, so we haven't come back here too often. But we still have family here, so we do come and visit. But recently, I read this book. Oh, first of all, I have to show you. Dean and I met, like I said, in college. I'm supposed to have a clicker. Is that what this is? Yeah. Okay. I always forget about my pictures. When we met, actually, the first time I laid eyes on him, I mean, he knocked my socks off. He was so impressive. So let's see if this... Oh, wait, here we go. I mean, look at that. I was hanging out with some friends, and there was some guys out there trying to impress the girls, and that's what I saw. I was like, he's the guy for me. He had to talk me into breaking up with the current boyfriend, though. But he did. It worked out, so that's good. But anyway, recently I was reading a book. It's called Success is Not an Accident, and I've read it several times, and I love this book. I can't recommend it enough, by Tommy Newberry. But one of the things he said in there was, great things can happen to ordinary people if they work hard and never give up. And that's what I want to communicate to you. And Peter kind of said that a little bit. I was like, oh, he's stealing my speech. But he said, you know what, we used to sit in the same meetings like you guys are today. We were the, brand new people sitting, we sat in the back, and we were intimidated and doubtful, like, can we do this? It was, we were afraid, we were insecure, we had no clue about life. We were 21 years old. We didn't know about money. We didn't know about self-improvement or anything like that. We just wanted a chance to do something great. And so we kept coming to the meetings, even though we still sat in the back over and over. And I'd see people up on stage speaking, and I said to Dean, I'm never speaking. Just remember that, I'm never speaking. And, I was like, I would never do that. I didn't even like to go up on stage and get recognized with him for any little tiny thing, because I was so afraid. I was afraid of being in front of people. It was very scary. And so, don't ever say you'll never do something, because you will do that, for sure. But, so Dean and I started in Primerica when we were seniors in college, and we were engaged to be married. And he was just looking for a way to make some money to take me on a honeymoon. He didn't really think beyond the honeymoon. He just thought, we got to go someplace great so we have great memories. And so he went to the newspaper. Back in the day, that's what you did. You went to the newspaper, found this ad that said, you can make an extra $1,000 a month. And so he was like, oh, that'd be perfect. And so he went to the meeting. He came over to my apartment afterwards, and he was so excited. He was like, we're going to be rich. We're going to have a boat. It's going to be awesome. I don't know. We still don't have a boat, but that's okay with me because I don't even want a boat. But that's what he thought. When he thought of rich people, it was people who had a boat. So that was a dream. But anyway, he was so excited. We still had no clue what life insurance was. We didn't know anything. Nothing. So anyway, let me see where I'm at here. Well, okay, so it wasn't easy. We thought it was going to be easy, though. So we actually made some money, a little bit, went on a honeymoon. We took all those checks that they give you for your wedding. You know, you take the cards out of the little basket, and you cash those, and then you go on the honeymoon. And so we took all that money. We had such a great honeymoon. We even bought a timeshare on our honeymoon because we thought, we are going to be so filthy rich. It's going to be awesome. And we'll be back here in like 3 months. We had no clue. So of course, a few months later, we foreclosed on the timeshare because we couldn't pay for it. We couldn't pay our rent. We had no idea about hard work. So I'm just saying, I'm giving you this so you have hope because I know there's nobody in here that could have been that bad off in your thinking. I remember when we were first married, we went to the grocery store together because he didn't have anything else to do. He wasn't working. And so he would go with me to the grocery store or the laundromat or wherever. And I was putting the milk, picked up the gallon of milk to put in the grocery cart. And he saw the price and he was like, we can't buy that milk. We're going to go to a different store and find it cheaper. That milk is too expensive. It was like $2. So I was like, ah. So there was a lot of tension in our marriage. Oops, I forgot to show you the marriage picture. We did get married. Okay. Like I said, I forget about my pictures. I get going. Anyway, there it is. So anyway, there was this tension because we were broke. He was not sure. He was trying to do the business, but he didn't really know how to do it. He didn't have a market because we were like just out of college. We weren't from Virginia, so we didn't know like grown-ups. We knew college students, and they didn't have any money either. So anyway, one time, some of our friends invited us over for dinner, and we had barely enough gas in the car just to get to their house. And we were thinking, how in the world are we going to get home? I mean, they lived like 15 minutes, not too far, but just too far for our car to get with the gas we had. And we'd already looked for the coins. You know, we used to get the coins under the mats and get like 25 cents of gas. Anyway, so we had already exhausted that option. And at the end of our dinner, they said, you know what? God has put it on our hearts to give you $50. Dean was like, yes, he has. And so they got their checkbook out and they started to write a check. And Dean is watching them going, oh no, not a check. He's like, could you give that in cash? And they're like, oh, okay. Because we told them, we said, we literally have no money to get home. And then they knew, well, that was God for sure. Because we didn't tell them until after they offered. But anyway, so I was working at the time. I had worked some secretarial jobs. Then I was working at a daycare center. We had one car. And this is our little apartment here. Just ignore the numbers on the left. That's our card table, which was a wedding gift from his parents. So that was our only kitchen table, and we had our dog. That was us. That was Dean not working. He was thinking about it, though. So anyway, every morning he would drive me to my job at the daycare, and then at 7 in the morning, I would work with the little 3-year-olds. They were very sweet all day. And then he would pick me up at 3 in the afternoon. And I was thinking, okay, while I'm working, he's working. But I kept wondering why we don't have any money. I was making like $5 an hour, so that wasn't helping much. And I babysat every evening. And so I was doing all I could, but I got paid very little. And he was not making much money. And so I was like, creditors are calling. We can't pay our rent. We can't put gas in the car. His parents would come and visit and stock our kitchen cupboards because they would be like, oh, there's nothing to eat here. And so it was a lot of tension in our relationship. I was feeling very insecure because I got married thinking, okay, you know, this guy is going to provide. He's going to take care of me. I mean, I'll work, but he's going to help too. And I was feeling, so all of these emotions, fear, doubt, insecurity, and then tension between us was making this whole business very, very stressful. I will say, we were immature. We had, a lot of growing to do. So hopefully, everybody else can be beyond us in that. But if you're feeling that way, don't worry, you still can do it. So this little kitchen table is kind of momentous, though, because one night I said, let me get back to one day I heard him speaking years later, like probably 10 years ago. He was speaking to our team, and he said, yeah, I used to take Sarah to her job at the daycare, and then I would go home and go back to bed. And I was like, oh, no wonder we had no money. And then he would pick me up and watch TV, So like I always say, sleeping a lot and watching a lot of television or playing video games. He would play one time he stayed up till 2 in the morning playing a GameCube in the closet. Okay, I've told you there's nothing else bad about him, that's all. He's awesome. But anyway, one night I made a little dinner for him at this little card table, and I presented him with a little present, and it was baby booties, and I said, we're gonna have a baby. So literally the next morning he got up and started working, and he went after it. It wasn't that he didn't know how or couldn't, he just needed some motivation. And he made $50,000 that year that we had the first child, and then the next year he made $100,000. So he just had to get a little motivation, and sometimes we just need a motivation, something that's like gonna motivate us really. So I'm gonna bring him out in just a second, but let me make sure I tell you everything I was gonna tell you. Okay. Anyway, if you can relate to our story, if you can relate, maybe you can't. Maybe you say, well, that's not my story, whatever, it doesn't matter. Another quote from that book said this: the truth is that life, if viewed as a card game, deals, I turned 50 this year, and I'm like really dependent on these. All right, the truth is that life, if viewed as a card game, deals good hands, bad hands, and average hands. You can win with any hand, and you can lose with any hand. In life, you will never be dealt a hand that with God's help cannot be turned into a winning one. Success is for you and for anyone willing to take initiative and pay the price. You can do it. So you may have say, I grew up in a bad home, I grew up in a good home, I had nothing, I had everything. Dean and I grew up in very average circumstances, very ordinary. Nobody around us was succeeding. But it doesn't matter what you've been dealt. You can take what you have and you can make it happen. You can do it. This is the place that, it has been the best place for our family, for our thinking, for our vision, increased our self-improvement, our belief, and our family will never be the same again because of this opportunity. So I just want to give you hope that go for it. If you're sitting in the back or the front, you can be up here speaking as $1 million earner, and there's nobody excluded. So I want to introduce my amazing husband. He really is awesome, Dean Francis.
How's it going, Primerica? Man, listen. I had it all under control the whole time. Hey, I'm telling you what. All you got to do is just look at that picture, right? Look, why did I even own a shirt like this, right? And just look at that and go, man, if that guy can do it, I can do it, right? We ought to give you so much hope. You really do. You see that picture right there. And no, I can't keep this on because you won't pay any attention to me. And but I liked it. I liked this shirt so much, I kept it. I really did. So it really is exciting to be here with you guys. Do you like to have fun? Yeah. That's good. So you look at that picture right there. I mean, I am not kidding you, okay? If you open up that refrigerator right there, or there's a little cupboard, you know, and if you open, there's no food in there. I mean, we were just living on frozen. The frozen pizzas went on sale for 50 cents. I mean, we would get as many as we could cram into that top of the freezer there. But I will never forget that little card table. You know, Sarah really did, when we were dating, she made it clear from day one that she wanted to stay home and raise kids. That was her dream. It was very clear. And of course, if you want to marry someone who wants to stay at home and raise kids, guess what you tell them? You say things like, I'm the man. I'm going to make all your dreams come true. I mean, I was learning sales early. And so, you know, really and truly, that moment came. And I remember opening up that little present with those baby boots inside. And I knew at that moment exactly what that meant. There was no flinching. It was that next morning, and I was up early. You heard Sarah say this. It's really true. I would take her. I hated early mornings. In fact, that's one of the reasons I went full time in Primerica. You know, I wanted to be my own boss. I thought that meant you could sleep in more, and so. But we only had one car, so I really did. I would drop her off real early in the morning, and I thought, I'm my own boss. I go back, get in bed, and. I'll never forget one time it was true. We were going to the laundromat, okay? And so we stopped by the office, and my NSD came out, and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, we're going to the laundromat." It's like a Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. And he's like, "Have you ever thought about the fact that Sarah could go to the laundromat and you could actually come in here and like set appointments?" I was like, no, I didn't. I hadn't thought of that. I mean, when Sarah says we were lost, I mean, I really had no understanding. And but the TV, I wanted to tell you about the TV show. That was every day. I mean, I'd pick her up, and by the way, on Fridays, I remember this. On Fridays, that's when she would get her paycheck, and so I always just happened to stop by around lunchtime and see if she happened to get her paycheck and get it deposited right before 2 o'clock to have money for the weekend. And so, but we would we'd come home each day at about 3:30, 4 o'clock, and I would turn on the TV. And this is crazy, but I would watch 2 hours of reruns of Mama's Family. Some of you are laughing because you've seen it. It's like, that had to be the dumbest show in the history of television. And I remember Sarah, she comes up to me one time before, but this is how I can remember it. She comes up behind me, and I'm watching, Mama's Family, and she goes, "Do you think maybe you ought to be working?" And 22. And I said to her, "Baby, I'm pacing myself." I'm like, you talk about, it was crazy. And, 30,000 in credit card debt, within those first 2 years, and she didn't, completely know that until the creditors started calling, then she found out. And so, there we are at that moment, and I opened up that present, and it really is true. That next morning, I was up early. I started busting my butt. Isn't it interesting? We'll let ourselves down, but we're not going to let our families down. Y'all with me on that? It just kind of hit a level where, that's enough. I'd been in Primerica long enough to recognize that this was real, that you could really do this, and I bought into the crusade. Sarah told you I'm from Troy. Anybody from Troy? Anybody? All right. Anybody go to Troy High School? So anyway, I went to Troy High School. My dad actually taught math there for many, many years. I was speaking to Shaquille Islam, if you know him, and his team one time, and his wife came up to me afterwards. She said, "You're going to be kidding, because we live in Michigan, we live in Virginia today, and that's where the Islams live." And Iram came up and she said, "You're not going to believe this. I actually had your dad for high school math." and right here in Troy. And so, anyway, I'm a big Michigan Wolverine basketball fan. Make that clear, because I know there's Buckeyes in here, okay? I love the Michigan basketball. I want to talk about Michigan basketball, okay? All right, so got that taken care of. And anyway, just from Troy, and anyway, grew up here, loved that. But my parents are teachers. They were both teachers, and I remember hearing about the Primerica opportunity, and there were two things that went through my mind when I first learned about it. The first one was that this was a company that was started for people like my parents. People that really give everything they have. They went into teaching because they wanted to make a difference. And when I started to recognize that this industry was doing nothing but trying to take advantage of people like my parents or neglecting them, I immediately, that just struck a chord with me. That there were wrongs that needed to be righted. Does that make sense? Okay, the idea of you could right wrongs, that this was something that you could get into that could make a difference. And I bought into the crusade from the very first day. And the other part of that was the fact that people could build a business. An average, ordinary person could do it. And although I was kind of out to lunch, I showed up all the time. And I would listen to people that were in this business earning six-figure incomes. And it got inside my heart that you could live a dream here. Things could happen. And so anyway, that's where we began. And so let me give you a couple things that kind of go along here with this, all right? Here we go. Okay, so you see this. Year one, I made $9,000. Okay, year two, $19,000. And here's another part that I want to kind of share with you, this insane story. So my uplines all quit at that point. I was full-time in the business, and I had this phone call from my upline, and he said, we need to meet. And he got together with me, and he said, Dean, I want you to know that we're all leaving the company. And I said, you got to be kidding me. And I said, why? He said, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be incredible. And because now, just so you know, my RVP was probably about $50,000 of income. My NSD was at $180,000, and the guy above him was at $240,000. And they were all leaving. And all the other RVPs, and there's no internet back then, right? So this is like everybody I know is like leaving. And so if you're wondering like why, y'all follow this? I'm broke. Okay, I'm completely broke. I'm an absolute mess. And I don't understand much of anything, but I understood the crusade. Did you hear that part? Yes. I got that part. So when I didn't believe in me and I may have been messed up, I understood truth. I understood doing what's right. And I bought into it. And so here's this moment, and he's telling me he's leaving. And I said, well, hold on a second. Are you telling me that you made this decision before talking to me? And he said, well, yeah, but we really want you to come. And just like that, I said, I'm not coming. He's like, what? I said, I'm not. He said, why not? I said, because the little bit I do understand about Primerica, if you actually believed that one day I was going to be somebody and I was going to do something really big, you would have been dang sure to come check with me first before you made that decision. So I'm staying, and I told him this. I said, one day, you're going to regret that decision for the rest of your life. I make $1 million a year. I make can you imagine me and that guy? I know you're wondering, does he know? I don't know if he knows the most current, but I got to tell you this part. So I think our income had gotten to about $250,000 along the way. And one of my recruits was at home one night, bored, and he got a cold call from an insurance agent. And so he thought, well, I may as well let the guy come over. And so the guy comes over, and finally my new recruit says to him, listen, I got to come clean with you. I'm in Primerica. I was just bored, and I just thought I wanted to hear your presentation. And this guy says, oh, well, you know, I understand Primerica. I said, hey, do you happen to know Dean Francis? And he said, well, yeah, that's my upline. And Benny, is his name, says, really? I recruited Dean into Primerica. And Brian, my new recruit, goes, listen, I'm kind of new in this, but you just told me a little earlier that you're making about $40,000, $50,000 a year. He said, if I'm not mistaken, Dean's now at $250,000 a year. I think had you stayed in the business, you'd be earning way more than you are now, and you'd not have to be sitting here at my kitchen table. Brian, my new recruit, said to me, he said, Dean, he said, I am not exaggerating this. He got white in the face. He was getting physically sick, and he was out of my house in 3 minutes. And I was like, yes! I told that guy. I'm just telling you, in this crazy story, I hope that, I hope you mainly get tonight that if you will buy into a dream and you'll fight with it with everything that you got here in this company, you will make it. It's going to challenge you with everything that you got, but you can do this. It's amazing. So anyway, that was when our uplines quit. So I'm literally out there completely, on my own. And this also happened along that journey early on. I hit a point of so much frustration that I actually threw in the towel. Like for, I don't know how long you want to measure it, 24 hours. I actually quit. Emotionally, mentally, I was done. That's enough. I can't take it. And so now, my faith's real important to me, and so it's interesting how those of us that say our faith might be important to us, we get a little spiritual about our quitting. We just say it different, So, Sarah comes, she comes home, and and I tell her, I said, listen, just been praying a lot about it. And I just feel like the Lord is just closing the door here in Primerica. But I have faith, and because when the Lord closes one door, He opens another. I'm trying to, but I'm just emotional, and I just, but I said, that's enough. You know what? It's obvious I'm just not supposed to be here. You need to remember I just said that. Because you're going to have moments like that. Maybe I'm just not supposed to be here. Here's another one. Maybe I'm just not cut out for this. And the end of the story is we cut ourselves out for whatever we want to do. And so but we really did. We, in that little, it was a different apartment, I guess, okay. But it was a little tiny, hand-me-down sofa. And we got on our knees and we prayed. It was like, I was done. I was like, Lord, just want to ask you for direction in our life. Where do we go next? What do we do? And, it's obvious you're directing, that kind of stuff, right? Okay. It's amazing how we go through all of this and never do we look in the mirror and go, maybe if I just worked my butt off, right? So, but that was it. It was, I just want you to know, I quit. Done. It was over. And So the next morning, you get up, and this is just how you did it back then. You get the newspaper out, you circle all the help wanted ads, and I set up 5 job interviews that day. How many of you ever set up a recruiting interview and the person doesn't show up? Well, thankfully, that's what happened to me, because after I got to that afternoon, and I was sitting there at that table, and I was looking at the paper with all those ads, and I set up 5 job interviews, and I was looking at that paper, and I was really thinking, if I take any one of those, I'll never achieve any one of these big goals and dreams I really have in my life. I mean, so many of these things that I've dreamed about that I really want life to be like, it's not going to happen. And I took that newspaper, and I crumbled it up, and I threw it in the trash that day. And Sarah came home, and I said, the Lord has spoken again. And I went back to work. Guys, do you see how life is made up of these choices, these decisions? Man, I'm so thankful for Primerica. This environment that we got to grow up in that has shaped our thinking and shaped us and moved us. I mean, it's the craziest environment today. I know I'm kind of bouncing around a little bit, but I mean, we just had the senior leadership meeting. You got to make at least $250,000 just to get in. 515 couples. That's a lot of people. And so, I mean, even right here today, in this room of just, a few hundred, there's 4 people making over $1 million a year. Is that not crazy? It's crazy. Plus all the $100,000. But let me tell you what's crazy about the senior leadership meeting, okay? It's just hilarious, really, because you'll say to somebody, so man, how's it going? Are you at your 4th diamond now? And people will go, no, I just got over 300,000. It's almost like they're ashamed. You know what I mean? Like, hey, how's it going? Well, I'm only at 300,000. I'm only at 4. I actually barely got in here. I only made 250 last year. I remember at one point, I brought our oldest son, Cameron, with us, and I remember at one point we're just hanging out with lots of people, in the lobby there, and you get something to eat and all kinds of stuff, and just lots of people hanging out and talking. And I mean, literally within, 40, 50 feet of me, I'm looking around and I'm like, Cameron, just stop for a second, okay? Okay, if I just start counting, there's probably 30, 40 people just within a few feet of us right now that all make at least $1 million a year. There's gobs of people here making 4 and 5 and all kinds of stuff. I mean, at one point, is that not crazy? It's just the most bizarre thing. But we do live in America, right? Where we have this thing called freedom. You don't have to work for somebody else. You can go in business. You can, as long as you're willing to work for it, there's no limits. And when you got a company like Primerica, and you don't have to come up with the capital, the systems in place, we're so fortunate. And so, anyway, I want to maybe give you the things, though, that helped us finally really break through, so you get some things out of tonight. So here's what occurred. That next morning when I went to work, I really got focused, and that definitely helped. It's amazing you work harder. I decided to really treat this more like a pro, if that makes sense. I wasn't, and it's a mistake a lot of new people make. You see a lot of people here earning bigger incomes, but you have no idea what they've actually put into it. We have a saying in our business, champions are made when no one else is watching. The people that are great in this business, see, when you're new and you're watching somebody do a kitchen table and you're watching them recruit and all these things, it seems like it's so easy, but you have no idea the work that's gone in before that. And I started to take it seriously. I got focused on how to present and how to set appointments and how to say things in a way that was more appealing and so forth. And I got focused on talking to more people. And so it was enough to break through as an RVP and make $50,000. And in fact, I got to tell you that real quick, because I remember in that I made $6,000 in a month, and I swear to you, it was like the greatest month ever. I could not have been more fired up. $6,000. Larry Weidel is my upline, makes $2 million a year, and he said, I was at a meeting, and he goes. By the way, I rolled direct to him. He's 3 hours away. I was still completely out on my own, okay? But at least I started getting to plug into him. And he said, hey, would you mind going and buying me a Coke? Because he was busy talking to all kinds of people. And I went and got him a Coke, and I brought it back, and I said, Larry, I am so excited to give you this Coke. He said, what are you talking about? Because I said, dude, if you'd asked me even last month to go get you a Coke at the cafeteria, I'd have told you no, because I ain't got no money. I was so excited. And so, anyway, and so here's what happened. Hey, aren't you excited to have a new year? Yeah. Aren't you excited? I mean, man, it's awesome. And it's on my heart right now, because it was those years ago, and it was in December, coming, right up to about, real close to right now. And I remember thinking to myself, I'd made 50, okay? And I remember thinking, I can pay my bills on time. It was a big achievement. But we still had a lot of debt. And I had a long way to go. And I remember thinking to myself, I ain't going to live like this. I'm not going to live paycheck to paycheck. We're in a company where you can earn a six-figure income, and I was ready to change. I was going into a new year believing this was going to be my year. Anybody with me on this? I mean, like, I was serious. I was focused. And I made three decisions. Number one, I was going to become the most positive, enthusiastic person I could possibly be. Now, some of you that are new, you're in the business less than a year. Raise your hand. Okay, listen, I'm about to save you years right here. Years. I spent my first 3.5 years in the business, almost 4 years, listening to people go, you need to be positive. You need to be excited. 90% of winning is enthusiasm. And I'm like, all right, yeah, but teach me how to make money and close a sale and recruit somebody. And can you move on to that's what I would do. And finally, you know what I decided going into that next year? The thinking I had gotten me to where I was at that point in my life. And I needed new thinking. And I decided that I'm not kidding you. I mean, I was going to become the most positive, enthusiastic. Now, make sure you understand this. That requires mental toughness. That's not just a happy pie in the sky. You got to be one mentally tough dude or dudette when you want to be like that. Does that make sense? You got to see the good in people and when the crap hits you got to start to really get after it. In fact, let me just, I know I'm going to fast forward and come right back, okay? But I had, I remember a day in my career, okay, actually not too long ago, about 7-8 years ago, and I'd gotten a whole new base shop going. And I left my house on a Saturday morning, and I had an appointment about 2 hours away. And so I got there, and they were not there. So I drove to my next appointment about an hour and a half away from that one. And I got there, they were there, and after meeting with them, I wish I wasn't there. You ever had an appointment like that? And so then I'm on my way to the next appointment, and I get the text on the way, sorry, something came up, can't do it, and drove 2 hours back home. Left at 7 in the morning, got home at like 4 or 5 on a Saturday, okay? Had done nothing. And you know what I said to myself? This is why I'm going to make a lot of money. This is what people are not willing to do. This is where most people quit. Bring it on. I'm going to keep going. In fact, I even made a recording. I got to find it somewhere. I buried it. I don't know where. I made a recording that day to my future self, telling myself what a stud you are. I was like all fired up, like, man, this is it. I'm gonna win here. So when I say positive, I'm not kidding. I have a friend in the business named Glenn Walden. God bless him, one of the most incredible leaders. And so you don't hear his name as much. Actually, you're hearing it a lot more because of his son today. But back in the day, man, he was the man. This guy was tearing it up. He grew up on a peanut farm. He was a machinist in a shipyard, had no college education. And I would get around him, and he was positive and mentally tough. And when I started that next year, I'm not kidding, I would ask myself this all the time: how would Glenn respond? What would he do? What would he say? Because remember what I said, my thinking had gotten me to where it had gotten me to that point in my life, and I didn't like it. And so I was going to change my thinking. I did, and I became positive, excited. Real quick, Sarah came in one day. See, she didn't tell you this part of the story. Okay. And so she comes in, and I'm on the phone, I'm setting appointments. I'm like every morning, I'm there early, I'm on it, I'm focused. And so anyway, so she comes in and she says she'd had a bad morning, okay, with the baby. Okay, some of you moms, like everything that could go wrong that morning went wrong, and she just wore out. And so she comes in and sits in front of me, kind of all like this, like on a chair, and just, she's just upset, bothered, and I'm trying to be on the phone and set an appointment and the whole thing, and so I get off the phone, and I said to her, listen, I understand things didn't go well for you this morning, but I'm trying to be positive and focused, and I'm trying to change our life, and if you can't be positive, you can't be here. And so I'm telling you the truth. This is how it started. This is the year. Everybody wants to change their life, and I'm telling this is decision number one. I wasn't mad. I was trying to say it the right way, but guys, we don't always say it real well. And so anyway, I went home that night, and I remember just like, oh, I don't really want to open the door. I think I'm going to get it. I forgot to tell you the rest of the story. After I told her that, okay, if you might imagine, within the next 10 seconds, my door slammed and she was gone, right? So I'm coming home that night, and I'm like, I'm in trouble. This is going to be, She came up, gave me the biggest hug. And she said, when you made that decision to become so positive, she said, I really like it. I like how you've been here. The last couple weeks, you really made up your mind, and I really like it. But today I realized I have to do the same thing. Ain't that something? And, I'm just, guys, don't overlook my first decision. Don't overlook this too quick. Okay? Because, I'll come back to that. Here we go. Second decision I made was that I was going to get totally, absolutely focused on double-digit recruiting. Now, if you're new, right, that means you got to bring in 10 new people in a month, okay? Not just yourself, but with people. I had a small team, and so I was sick and tired, and I was like, I got to have 10 recruits. Now, guys, listen. I've been in the business 3.5 years. I had never recruited 10 in a month, ever. I was averaging like 3, 4, maybe 5, okay? And so here's another young lady who inspired me. She was a single mom with 4 kids, and she was killing it. She came in the business, made $50,000 her first year, $100,000 her second. And I remember going, my gosh, what is wrong with me? She was killing me. And I went up to her, and I talked to her, and she said, Dean, you got a double digit. And I'm like, Bonnie, I've never done that before. I don't know. What do you think about maybe getting 5 this month and then 10 the next month? I was trying to come up with a strategy to build the 10. And she just looked at me. She's like, how long you been in the business? I said, well, about 3.5 years. And she's like, are you part-time or full-time? I said, I'm full-time. She said, you need to get 10 recruits and do it right now. You freaking wimp. Now, she did not say the second part, But do you realize, with a male ego, that's how it felt like. I am such a wimp. I mean, I needed that. Guys, we got to, listen, you want to win? We got to toughen up. And ain't nobody going to give us nothing. And so that's what happened. I went out there that next month with everything I had. I told Sarah, I said, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen to our income even exactly. But I said, there's going to be 10 recruits at the end of the month if it kills me. I said, because here's my objective in this coming year. It's to get us to a point where money is no longer in control of us. I'm sick of it and I want to change. And if I got to recruit, then that's what I'm going to do. And I went out there and everything we had, and we did it. We had 10 recruits. I was so fired up. And the next month, we focused on growing more, and we did 15 recruits. And the next month, 27 recruits. Our income that month was $12,000. Guys, there's magic in 90 days. There's a magic in 90 days. You can change your life in 90 days. You gotta be the most positive. You gotta change. You gotta sell out to recruiting. And so you know how I know I made 12 grand? Because I'm so working so hard. I don't have time to pay attention. And so I was on a conference messaging system. Anyway, it was like a audio recording of a message Larry Weidel put out. And he said he was going through the cash flow of everybody the previous month. And he said, how about this? We got this new young guy last month, Dean Francis, $12,000 income, And I was like, I remember listening to that going, replay. Dean Francis, $12,000. Replay. I played it over and over. I'm like, this is incredible. And that was a big part of our breakthrough. I had one more decision though that I made. One more decision. And that was to sell out to getting people to meetings and events. Just like this. You guys are going to have another one in April. You might have some people you can still get here tomorrow. But I'd listened long enough to other people before me, and they just kept saying, you gotta focus on recruiting, you gotta get people to the events, and then let the events and the meetings do the work. And I'm like, listen, I'm tired of struggling and just getting by. I'm gonna listen to my upline. I'm gonna listen to the people around me that were winning. And the combination of those three things, it really did. It changed our entire life. By August, we had the $100,000 ring that year. What about you? What about 2019 for you? What if you sold out with everything that you had in these first 90 days to go out there? Why not? And it just totally changed things forever. Let me tell you the things that I did right so you make sure you get them. See, number one, I bought a dream. I really did. I bought the dream early on. And number two, I showed up. Some of you that are newer in the business, you just need to hear this again, okay? I did everything wrong, but I did one thing right. I always showed up. As screwy as I was, watching TV and sleeping in. And by the way, we liked watching Garfield and Bugs Bunny on Saturday mornings. So Sarah was watching those with me. Okay. And so I showed up. My dad taught me. He didn't know a lot about money and business, okay? But he taught me this. You sign up, you show up. I did not know how to not show up. I missed a football practice one time. I know you're looking at me like, what were you doing on a football field? Okay. It didn't last long. But I came home one day because it was hot, and I skipped practice. And my dad's the most positive, kindest, warm person, okay? Lit me up. Said, you do not miss, ever. He said, after that season's over, you want to stop, that's fine. But you signed up, you show up. And I remember the second, third week in the business. That's exactly what was going on. I was showing up and other people weren't. I kept showing up. It's such a big deal. Which meetings do we show up to? The ones we want to go to and the ones we don't want to go to. What's the most important meeting? The next one. And you just got to keep showing up. I've always been a maniac about it, and it's paid off. I got the book, All You Can Do Is All You Can Do. Art Williams had just come out with it, our founder. And I got to tell you this is, I think, important. He was my first self-improvement book I ever bought. First motivational kind of thing. I got it on 2 audio cassettes. For those of you under 30, we'll explain that later. Anyway, I don't read well. I do not read well, and so I got it on audio cassette, and I started listening to Art Williams talk over and over about how to win. And I listened to it, again, over and over and over. I wouldn't, if you would have met me back then, I wouldn't shut up about it. I would tell you over and over all these winning principles that I was hearing him talk about. And I really think it ingrained some things into me that really, really helped. And I got to tell you, you got to have that book going into this next year. You know, there's other great books that you can even have today. But that book was that was incredible. And so I got to also tell you this. I stayed in the market. The guy who recruited me, although he made a very poor choice of not staying here, he taught me one thing on day one when I showed up. By the way, I told you I'm from Troy, Michigan. When Sarah and I were in the business, Manesh, what's up, man? Man, if you're in the Ian Pruckner hierarchy, I mean, you got to be so thankful for Manesh. I remember meeting Manesh because you understand, like, I'm hungry, okay? So I came to Ian when he made $1 million. I came out here and met a lot of you guys. I'm like, you guys got to see what you're doing. And I met Manesh. And I said, tell me, you know, because Ian had said, man, Manesh helped me get things organized. We got this system and everything. And so Manesh told me the truth. You know, he said, oh, yeah, I met Ian. Ian was wild man on fire. He goes, nothing wrong with wild man on fire, but not everybody's like that. So I help him with the system. I'm like, dude, oh man, I need Manesh. And so he told me this. So I remember I'm in Virginia. Do you understand? When Sarah said I had no market, I was a college student. And so I'm in Virginia. Everybody I know is single and broke. I come to my field trainer with my list that he asked me to fill out. And I show up, and I had one name on it. It was like one professor I knew that I thought would probably help me out. And he looked at me, and he said, Dean, I just got to be honest with you. If you can't put me in front of people who are in our target market, I can't train you. He said it nice, and he said it direct. And you know what I did? I went and found people. I went and knocked on doors of neighbors that I barely knew and said, hey, I'm a college student. I need your help. I didn't get a lot of appointments, but let me tell you what. I learned from day one, you get in front of people in the market. Does that make sense? Probably the best thing that happened because it allowed me to actually make money, all right, as I went. Not a lot, but I was always able to continue to make money. He also told me this. He said, by the time your head hits the pillow on Sunday night, you got to have your week booked up. And I remember imagining my head about to hit the pillow, you know, and I'm like, I got to have my week booked up. And it taught me. I always did that. And so anyway, and I told you about the 3 decisions. You know, tomorrow, guys, I'm going to go into some things that I have found that's been really helpful. If you don't know this about me, in our journey, we went on to have 5 kids, and we got our income to $300,000. We actually became a senior vice president, had 3 RVPs, and by the time we were in our 30s, we were over $300,000 a year. But with all the kids, I started coaching. And I coached a lot of travel baseball. I got to coach for probably about 7 or 8 years. I was on a baseball field 40 to 60 hours a week. And that was like 9 months out of the year. And then in the off season, I was coaching basketball, and I was on a court 20, 30 hours a week. Because of Primerica, I had the freedom to do it. And I'll never forget that because I had people that would ask me all the time, what do you do? And I remember thinking, I'm so glad I didn't quit. I'm so glad I stayed here. And, but I gravitated over to the investment side of the business. I didn't mean for this to happen, but I'm in an area where it just demographically it works out well for investments. And so I started making a lot of our income there. So did my RVPs. And we never meant to stop recruiting, but we did. So in 2010, I had to actually start over. Okay, I had my RVPs. We were making money, but if it makes sense, there's no youth. There's nothing. I got nothing, okay? My base shop in May of 2010 did 0 recruits and 0 in premium. Like, seriously, like 0. Go back, check the scoreboard. There are 2 big zeros next to my name. And I made a decision that we were going to build a big base shop and go out there and create 7 to 10 first-generation RVPs that could, you know, I was going to become an SNSD. I was going to build a big base shop. And anyway, make a long story short, I'll tell you more about that tomorrow. 12 months later, we were at 50,000 in the base shop. And in 2017, we qualified as senior national sales directors, did over 200 recruits and 200,000, and became $1 million earners in this incredible company just a few months ago. I'm telling you, your dreams can come true here. I'm going to go into more detail tomorrow. Proud to be your teammate, guys. See you tomorrow.